Hello everyone! So I originally filmed this video a few days ago and then went to edit it a few days ago and decided that I really hated the way the sun was in the entire video. It kind of was shining off books everywhere. Didn't have time to refilm until today. Also decided that I might slightly change it a bit and add also my wrap-up for September in here, because or else I'm probably not going to get to do it, or else it'll just be too late and you'll never hear about the cool books that I read and the one that made me cry! Ah! Well, teared up a little, but baby steps. So to start off with some recommendation books, I'm going to go with Mort by Terry Pratchett. Oh my gosh, that's shiny. Let's move that over here. This book is about the anthropomorphic personification of death, deciding that he is tired of being death and that he wants an apprentice. And so he gets his apprentice Mort. A wonderful little French pun. This story is just incredibly hilarious. I think probably a little bit spooky in that it's got death in it. But when reading in October, do you really want to jump in with The Shining? No. You want to start funny and a little bit scary and then slowly get into something that's gonna scare your pants off and make you want to have to sleep with the light on. Yeah. This book is number 3 in Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, which is basically about 50 books or whatever, however many he wrote in that. It's a huge amount, all set in the Discworld. But death is a character which pops up in many of the books in the Discworld series, sometimes only for like a sentence as he's taking away a dying chicken, but these books are just so funny, of death always trying to understand humans and understand what they're about, and Mort trying to go, but you can't do that to me, I can't take a wonderful mixture of Mort being an idiot but also being a good soul. And anyway, I highly recommend this book. Slight then disclaimer, I haven't finished it. I only started it a while ago and I still haven't finished it. The next book that I have to recommend, of course, is going to be here because it is my favourite series, and especially it is the month for it, and that is the Lockwood Co series by Jonathan Stroud. I'm holding up the 5th book here because it's really pretty, but also because I lent out the first book that I owned to a friend. Which, by the way, you better be reading that. I don't care that you're reading Song of Fire and Ice. This series is an amazingly great spooky series. They just get spookier and spookier as they go. It is based on an alternate England, and specifically it's mostly set in London, where during the night the dead rise, well, their spirits rise and haunt the living, trying to ghost touch them, and mostly they're just trying to reach rest and peace, but they're angry about stuff because they're not at peace, so they're just angry about it. Apparently ghosts don't have to see a normal therapist like the rest of us. And the main character, Lucy, we get the entire series from her perspective, and she is an agent, because only children can see these ghosts, so they are the only people that are there to fight back against them. Anyway, I highly recommend these books. They are just, the audios for them are great, and the physical books are pretty great if you want to read those too. Depends what you're really into. But they are a wonderful spooky read, and at least with an audio you can read them with the lights off and get extra spooked. Then, of course, there is the definite classic, Dracula by Bram Stoker. Is that what it is? Yeah. This, of course, is what, you know, what started all of the scary stories along with Frankenstein. Dracula, I think, is the classic that has spurred on so many YA novels with all of those wonderful vampires. If you want a good spooky story, this is the story to go to. There are so many things that you can see where all of these tropes came from, but this was when they weren't tropes. This is the original, y'all. Now onto a few which I'm hoping I can possibly get onto this month. First, starting off with This Savage Song by V.E. Schwab. This book is set in, I don't really know, I don't know too much about this book. Also, I've discovered that if I put up this book, I'm discovering with cameras that if I put up this book, my face goes darker. See? Isn't that amazing? I'm learning so many things, I'm such a novice. Anyway, this book, as far as I know, is about questioning about lots of morality stuff, but as far as I know, it's got lots of monsters in it, because in this world, physical sins, maybe it's also cuss words as well, I don't know, but sins manifest themselves into physical monsters, which I'm not sure if those monsters attack you or if those monsters are necessarily evil, or whether that's part of the question, but this follows 2 main characters, one called August and one called I don't remember. One is a monster who wants to be good, and the other is a human who wants to be evil, and I think the kind of working out of all of that. I think it's fairly well done. V.E. Schwab is one of my favourite authors, so I'm really looking forward to getting into this, and if you are also wanting a nice spooky read, you might also enjoy this. Disclosure, I've heard it is quite violent and a bit more towards the more adult end of young adult, so yeah. I just tipped over a thing of water and now my book is wet. The next book that I have is S.T.A.G.S or S.T.A.G.S, written by M.A. Bennett. I don't really know much about this book, but it is the book that I'm currently reading with the Brisbane Dymocks. There's a book club that is held there where I book club. If you happen to be in Brisbane, come and join it, it'll be fun. It says 9 students, 3 blood sports, 1 deadly weekend. So it sounds like it's going to be a nice creepy read with lots of violence in it, because everyone needs a good spout of violence. It means we don't have to go binge V for Vendetta again. This is a fairly new release, so if you're interested in looking into a fairly new released book that is also spooky, this is a good go-to book. Then I have a few books that I'm listening to on audio. So Sabriel by Garth Nix is basically a story about a girl who is a necromancer, and as far as I know, her job is to keep the dead dead. There's like several gates and stages of death, and she's like to keep them staying dead, I think. As far as I know in this story, her father goes missing and then she goes to try and find him, and it's apparently a lot of fun and I'm enjoying it so far. There's lots of monsters and lots of dead people, but yeah. If those motorbikes would stop being annoying, that would be awesome. Thanks! Then for younger readers, there are 2 specifically that come to mind. One being The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I don't have this on my hand, my family owns a copy, but I don't have it. This book I've been wanting to read for ages, and I'm hoping I can possibly get onto it this month. I'll see how I go. Nobody Owen's family is brutally killed, and so I think obviously being in a graveyard somewhere, I haven't started it, but the people, the spirits in the graveyard decide that collectively they are going to raise him, and so they raise Nobody Owens, and I don't really know much more about the story than that, but enough of that sounds awesome, and Neil Gaiman always writes an incredibly interesting tale. He's one of the more outside-of-the-box writers, so I would definitely suggest this if you are looking for something probably light and funny and also very spooky, because Neil Gaiman is pretty good at that. And then for that 10-year-old sibling of yours that really wants to read something, or if that's you yourself, or if you're still 10 at heart like me, there is The Witches by Roald Dahl. This book just explains and shows and is a beautiful little narrative about why those nice little old ladies are probably evil witches and they're just in disguise and they will probably cook you up and eat you. And it is so funny, and if you get a Quentin Blake version of with the illustrations, which I think you can only get Quentin Blake illustrations, are just absolutely adorable, and it is just, if you didn't read The Witches as part of your childhood, I think you need to update your childhood and read The Witches. It's a children's book, and it's very, very short. You can read it in about an hour. You will not regret it. Go and enlighten yourself. You are very welcome. That is it for my spooky list. It's basically, you need to read these. Yeah, I know. For the books that I read in September, I actually read 4 books. Actually, no, I think one of those I finished a few days ago, but I'm gonna count it in this wrap-up because, yeah. The first book that I finished in October was my most anticipated, The Empty Grave by Jonathan Stroud. I absolutely loved this. I will at some point make a full wrap-up for it, but yeah, I'm already talking about this book in this video, so you can go look at what the first one is about there. The next book that I read was I Shall Wear Midnight by Terry Pratchett, which is book number 4 in the Tiffany Aching series. I started this series ages ago. It was the first Terry Pratchett that I ever read, which was The Wee Free Men, and then Hatful of Sky, then Wintersmith. I never got on to reading I Shall Wear Midnight. I finally remedied that, and I've read it, and I loved it, and I really don't want to finish the series because the final book, The Shepherd's Crown, was the last book that Terry Pratchett ever wrote. He wrote that in 2015, I think is when he passed away. Let's not talk about that. I absolutely loved I Shall Wear Midnight, and yeah, I recommend the Tiffany Aching series to absolutely anybody. It is incredible. The third book that I read was finally finishing The Mortal Instruments. That's right, I finished City of Heavenly Fire, and I absolutely, actually loved it. That was the book that I have been looking for. The entire series that is the book that I have been looking for, and it finally, like, did it for me. Everyone, I felt they were so much actually reached their potential of the kind of characters they could be. They finally had enough depth. Everything had enough depth. I wish she had been that mature at writing throughout the entire series, and yeah. Anyway, I'm super actually kind of happy with the way that series ended, and really looking forward to finishing Clockwork Princess, because I was putting off reading that until I'd finished The Mortal Instruments, and then finally getting onto Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows, because those are the two that I've been really hanging out to read, but I was like, you have to read this other two first. So, super excited for that. And then we get on to the one that made me cry, the final book that I read, which I actually read at the beginning of October, and that is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This book, oh my gosh, the end, I had tears in my eyes. None of them fell, but I had tears in my eyes, and I could hardly read, and I just don't know how I feel about this book. I think this is one of my new favourite books ever. For those of you who don't know what this book is about, it is set in World War II, Nazi Germany era. It is about a girl called Lisa, whose mother and brother both die, and she is trained off to go and live with foster parents. The thing that especially makes this book stand out is that it is narrated from the first person perspective by Death. Having it told from Death's perspective is an incredibly fresh feel, and I would highly recommend this book to anyone who wanted to pick it up. I actually just super enjoyed this. Those are all the books that I read before now. Thank you so much for watching. That will be all, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. Exams! Sorry, that was about as scary as I can get.